Welcome to First Parish in Bedford, a Unitarian Universalist congregation where we come together every week as a people with diverse beliefs and a shared commitment to bring more peace, more love, more justice, and more joy into the world. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whether you worship one God, many gods, or no God, you are welcome here. I want to say a special welcome to all of our visitors this morning in person and on Zoom. We are glad you're with us today. Here in the sanctuary, you are invited to fill out a blue connection card, which you'll find at the end of the pews. You can give that to one of the ushers during the collection, and we'll add you to our mailing list. In Zoom, we'll put a link into the chat where you can fill out a virtual connection card. Parents and caregivers of little ones, there's a nursery available downstairs for your convenience, but we are always delighted to have little ones here in the sanctuary as well. After the service, everyone's welcome to join us in the common room for coffee, tea, and fellowship. We have some announcements. Next week is our semi-annual congregational meeting immediately after the service. Please join us to hear reports, including an important update on the capital campaign. Speaking of which, the Capital Campaign Task Force has put out a newsletter, and you should have received the first issue with the Friday email. Some printed copies will also be available at a table in the common room. Please check it out and plan to bring your questions and your enthusiasms to the congregational meeting. Tonight at 6 p.m., everyone is invited to gather at the Memorial Garden for our annual Halatak Napja observance. Halatak Napja is the Hungarian Day of the Dead observed by our Hungarian siblings, Unitarian siblings in Hungary. Join us tonight for a ritual of candle lighting and singing to remember the departed. Those are all of our announcements. Now will you please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit.
We have gathered once again here at First Parish to celebrate our resilience, to celebrate the spirit of hope and caring and commitment that enlivens and sustains this community. All the year this year, we are talking about hope, and the theme for November is Hope Looks Like Not Giving Up. And today, in particular, we are looking at the core commitments of Unitarian Universalism that help anchor us and hold us steady and firm when the winds of life or current events go from gentle breezes to stormy gusts or even gale force winds, as they sometimes do, when they might otherwise threaten to tip us over or even blow us away. What are the values that we anchor ourselves to, that anchor us in turn? For much of the modern era of Unitarian Universalism, we expressed these commitments as 7 principles. More recently, we talk about 7 values. Whether it's principles or values, 7 is a lot of anything to hold in your head. So today we're going to talk about just 3, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Don't want to do that either. We keep it PG here. Instead, I would like to open today with words from the Reverend Jack Mendelson, late minister of this congregation. These are from his classic work, Being Liberal in an Illiberal Age, or Why I Am a Unitarian Universalist. And Reverend Mendelson wrote, "I am life that wills to live in the midst of life that wills to live. My life is a gift, a grace if you wish. How might I best express gratitude for my own gift of life? By reverencing not only my own will to live and to be fulfilled, but that of others. How could I do this, he asks? By sympathy, obviously, by self-development, by encounter. We do not live alone. We live together. We depend on one another." He says, "To forget that is to become spiritually lost, like fiery particles flung off from the solar system and quenched meaninglessly in outer space." How's that for a nice line? He concludes, "My liberal faith is anchored in our membership in one another and in a consciously embraced ethical spirit generated by this truth." So we light our chalice today, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, in honor of that consciously embraced ethical spirit that honors each of our individual needs and also our need for each other. Let us learn to better live together. Now, if you will please rise again in body or spirit, we are going to say our unison affirmation that we say every Sunday. The words are in your order of service and on the screen. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Este es nuestro gran pacto, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en espíritu de amor, y ayudarnos los unos a los otros. Please be seated. All right, this is the time in the service for our story for all ages. So out in the Zoomosphere, families, this is a great time to gather a little more closely around the cozy blue glow of your device. On the balcony level, children and youth, this is a great time to gather a little closer around the balcony windows without tipping over, please. Our story for all the ages today is called Walking with the Wind. This is a true story that comes to us from John Lewis, the great leader in this nation who passed away a few years ago. The story is adapted by Karen Johnston from John Lewis's memoir, which is called Walking with the Wind. And John Lewis had lived a long and full life as a public servant, asking of himself and asking of all of us to show up for justice, to do what we can, and then maybe do just a little bit more, all to make sure that there was more fairness and more equality in our country. Mr. Lewis grew up in a large family, and he would spend time with his aunts or uncles and his siblings and his cousins. There were many, many children in the neighborhood. They would all play together. And he tells about a time when he was playing outside of his Aunt Seneva's house with about 14 other children, and that day a storm, a big storm, blew up out of nowhere. It was the kind of storm that made him very afraid. And I'm going to tell the story from his perspective as he tells it in his memoir. These are his words. So when I say I, that means Mr. John Lewis is talking. And this is the story he tells about that day. He says, Aunt Seneva was the only adult around, and as the sky blackened and the wind grew stronger, she herded us all inside the house. Her house was not the biggest place around. It seemed even smaller, with so many children squeezed inside, small and surprisingly quiet. All of the shouting and laughter that had been going on earlier outside had stopped. The wind was howling now, and the house was starting to shake, and we were scared. Even Aunt Seneva was scared. And then it got worse. Now the house was beginning to sway. And the wood plank flooring beneath us was beginning to bend, and then a corner of the room actually started lifting up. I could not believe what I was seeing. None of us could. The storm was actually pulling the house toward the sky with us inside of it. That was when Aunt Seneva told us to clasp hands, to line up and clasp hands. She said, and we did as we were told. Then she had us walk as a group toward the corner of the room that was rising. From the kitchen to the front of the house, we walked, the wind screaming outside, sheets of rain beating on the tin roof, and we brought it down. And then we walked back in the other direction as the other end of the house began to lift up, and so it went back and forth, 15 children walking with the wind, holding that trembling house down with the weight of our small bodies. Now, when John Lewis was much older and he was writing the story of his life, he wrote these words about that day. He said, "More than half a century has passed since that day, and it has struck me more than once over these many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house, rocked again and again by the winds of one storm or another, the walls around us seeming at times as if they might fly apart. It seemed that way in the 1960s, he says, at the height of the civil rights movement, when America itself felt as if it might burst at the seams. So much tension, so many storms. But the people of conscience, he says, never left the house. The people of conscience never ran away. They stayed, they came together, and they did the best they could, clasping hands and moving toward whichever corner of the house was the weakest. And then another corner would lift, and we would all go there, and eventually, inevitably, the storm would settle, and the house still stood. He says we knew another storm would come, and we would have to do it all over again, and we did. And we still do, said John Lewis, all of us, you and I, children holding hands, walking with the wind. Thank you for listening to Mr. John Lewis's story. May it speak to all of us who may feel like we are walking through some storms together today. Now, we are going to sing the children out to their religious education classes with Jason Shelton's Children's Blessing. The words are in the bulletin and on the screen. Thank you for sharing our story. Have a wonderful RE class.
Good morning. My name is Marge Heckman, and I'm a member of the lay pastoral team here at First Parish. At this time in the service, we invite anyone in the sanctuary who would like to come forward and light a candle of joy or concern to do so. Please try to keep your comments brief and make sure you hold the microphone close and tell us your name. And then we will check in on Zoom. No one on Zoom today, so I will light one final candle for all those joys and concerns that we keep in our hearts. And I will be at the candle stand after the service if anyone would like to light a candle in private.
Would you please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our meditation hymn, which is number 123, Spirit of Life. Every first Sunday of the month, First Parish gives away half of the Sunday collection to a worthy organization nominated most often by you and chosen by the Social Responsibility Council. And the November Share the Plate is on the rise. And I'm very happy to welcome this morning Delphine Mooney to tell us more about this organization. Delphine is the executive director of On the Rise. She has led the organization for 4 years, but has been involved in some capacity for 12 years now. She is a relationship builder and a leader in fundraising, in change management, in community engagement, in strategic planning and culture. With nearly 20 years of experience in philanthropy and nonprofits, her areas of expertise span multiple sectors, including healthcare, human services, and higher education. And now she's going to tell us a little bit more about On the Rise. Please join me in welcoming Delphine Mooney.
Thank you so much, Reverend. I don't think I need the stepping stool, so good morning, everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me to be in community with you all today. I'm here in celebration and memory of Joan because of her connection to our organization, and she's very dear to us, and so celebrating her life. I was thinking earlier about the words that were shared around community, and when times are tough, how resilient it is to be in community. And there's a lot that On the Rise does, but fundamentally that is who we are. It's a community that many people draw a lot of resilience from, including myself and the over 450 individuals who come to us. So we are a day program, a community for women and gender diverse individuals moving through and beyond homelessness. We offer a very low threshold space where we meet participants where they are, fulfill basic tangible needs, and ultimately build relationships, long-term, trusting, non-judgmental relationships. The heart of the work, the physical heart of the work is our building, which we affectionately call the Safe Haven, and many consider a sanctuary. It's a beautiful Victorian home tucked between Central and Inman Squares in Cambridge. And when you step inside, it doesn't feel like an office or a program. It feels like a home. There are cozy couches in the living room, a big, warm kitchen where we share meals, places to shower, do laundry, and take care of everyday needs. You can spend a few hours at On the Rise, or even the whole day, resting, eating, regrouping, finding new clothes, or simply being in a safe space. Accessing tangible resources in the privacy and safety of our safe haven, you're allowed to come and go as you please, which is a really unique feature. All the while, On the Rise community advocates are right there in the mix, sharing in the meals, joining in organizing activities, and slowly building relationships at a pace set by the participants. That is how trust is built and how we are able to find the unique individual ways that we can support our participants. These relationships are the foundation and jumping off point for more complex advocacy in which we collaborate with many other programs to meet participants' multifaceted needs. Navigating these complex issues requires a different approach, which is why relationships are the core of the work that we do. It's the ultimate outcome that we are looking to build with someone. We're successful when we're able to build a long-lasting relationship. We partner in the journey that people are moving through. We respect them as whole people, and we trust them as partners. Our advocacy can inform any domain of life, from essentials, food, clothing, like getting an ID or picking up a prescription from a pharmacy, to more complex work like accompaniment to court and advocacy on someone's housing status. These relationships provide people with a grounding place, a community where they can return to over and over and over again. Think of the most important community that you belong to. That's the experience and connection that we center at On the Rise. Just to describe a little bit about what that advocacy looked like, I mentioned a few things, but helping a participant to navigate the stress and overwhelm they feel having limited food options, and by creating alternate choices on site for them that meet their dietary restrictions and give them an opportunity for choice. Meeting with the participant many times in various changing places in order to help them sign a lease so that they can move into an apartment. Collaborating with the participant on finding a path towards safety during a journey that took them out of state and away from their community and resources. There are hundreds of other instances, thousands of instances of advocacy like this. I think the unique thing about On the Rise that we center relationships is something that connects us all, and we're grateful to be here because of Joan's relationship with On the Rise. As this is not news to you all, but there are many issues facing the participants that we work with, people who are unhoused, who are marginalized. We work with many folks in the immigrant community, folks who are gender diverse and live and operate in a very binary system. At this moment, I have some materials that I'll share, and I'll be available to speak to some of the response measures we're doing around SNAP, but there are many ways that you can get involved with On the Rise. Volunteer drives for moving home drives, which is a package that we put together for folks who are moving into apartments, seasonal toiletries, clothing, coming to tour our space and actually get a sense of what it's like to be there, and the unique kind of warmth that we offer, and telling others about us. So I really appreciate your interest in this community's efforts in responding to the needs of those who are being undermined right now. And I'm very much looking forward to speaking with you all after. Thank you.
Thank you, Delphine, and thank you so much for the work that you are doing. So half of the collection today will go to On the Rise. If you are giving by check, please put Share the Plate in the memo line. If you are giving online, please choose Share the Plate in the drop-down. The offering will now be taken. Please give generously as you are able.
The order of service calls this a reading. Actually, it's more of a personal reflection. And I'm going to call it Me and Mississippi John Hurt. The title of today's service, We Shall Not Be Moved, is a phrase rooted in the book of Psalms, referring to God's protection, spiritual security. These same words have been used in a secular context for social justice movements where there's a commitment to a cause in the face of extreme adversity. And I'm thinking about members of this church who stand out in front of the church on Friday evenings at 5 o'clock and stand at Wednesdays at noon in front of the ICE headquarters. There's likewise a song called We Shall Not Be Moved. We're going to sing it shortly. It's very simple. The words, like a tree planted by the waters, we shall not be moved. And it's repeated over and over. Like a tree planted by the waters, we shall not be moved. So when I began to work on this reading, I accidentally typed the pronoun I instead of we. And since there really are no accidents, otherwise, I would not have discovered Mississippi John Hurt and his recording of I Shall Not Be Moved. He was born in Mississippi in 1892, and he was one of the greatest blues guitarists, singers, and songwriters in our country's musical history. So I started to listen to his version of I Shall Not Be Moved on YouTube, and I listened to it over and over, and over. You can ask Ellen, and over. The steady cadence of his right thumb playing the bass line was like a metronome, and his voice just touched me. Now, if you watch videos on YouTube, you can see sometimes there are comments that come down on the right side of a page, and I started to pay attention to them. And I was really moved by how many people were affected by the lyrics of I Shall Not Be Moved and by his music. And I wanted to share some of those comments verbatim, just as they were written, because they had an effect on me. Hearing him makes me think of small country churches or a family get-together under the shade tree on a Sunday afternoon. That guitar technique is positively sublime, and that signature gentle growl would pacify an enraged gorilla. Another person wrote, I heard a grandma that was protesting for immigrants singing this song as they carried her out. I think this should be our song as a nation in these times of protest. Another person wrote, my 93-year-old grandmother, who has dementia and has never sung a song in front of anyone before, just opened up and sung this song today. We all had tears in our eyes. Another person, this was not just an old Delta song, this was one of the greatest of the Freedom Rider songs of the 60s. God bless you, John. And last, what a beautiful way to start the morning. 5 a.m., getting ready to take my brother for cancer treatment. This song lifted my soul. Music. Music has the power to strengthen our spirits and connect us to our deepest values. These days, we need songs like these to remind us of who we are and who we want to be. We come together to build a more just world. This is where we have planted ourselves, and we shall not be moved.
Thank you so much, Rich. There is a story that once upon a time, about 100 years ago-ish, when Unitarian Universalism was still Unitarianism and Universalism, and both traditions were going through this period of tremendous change as they widened beyond their purely Christian roots, and they began embracing all of these new strands of thought: humanism, skepticism, atheism, progressivism, spiritualism, feminism, socialism, many currents of contemporary thought that were agitating the waters of the early 20th century. Once upon a time, during this very creative and expansive time in our history, someone took note of all this change and asked a Universalist minister, what do Universalists stand for anyway? And the minister replied, sir, we do not stand at all, we move. And it was said, I'm sure with pride, and maybe with defiance, and maybe with a touch of defensiveness. We don't stand, we move. And it is true that part of the liberal orientation to life is an openness to new ways of thinking and new ways of behaving, new ways of ordering our personal lives, new ways of ordering society. To be liberal, I mean spiritually liberal, not politically liberal. To be liberal in this sense is to embrace change and evolution. We do not stand, we move. An openness to evolution is how two historically Christian religious movements, like Unitarianism and Universalism, became in the end a new tradition of Unitarian Universalism, most of whose members do not identify as Christian, and the hallmark of which is an openness to all faiths and no faith, and an embrace of people from all manner of spiritual backgrounds and diverse spiritual perspectives. And it is this openness to new truth and to a multiplicity of perspectives that leads people to summarize us as the church where you can believe whatever you want. This is the church where you can believe whatever you want, which is sort of true in the sense that there can be no creedal test of membership at a UU congregation. What people typically mean by the church where you can believe whatever you want is that no one here is going to tell you what you should believe about God or the universe, or which holy prophet you should follow, or which scriptures have the final word on truth, or which behaviors are divinely ordained and which behaviors are sinful. We don't claim to have an inside track on absolute truth here. We don't claim to have a privileged perspective on the ultimate nature of reality. And so at our best, we are humble seekers after truth and meaning together. At our worst, we substitute cultural pieties for religious pieties. That's a sermon for another day. Now, hearing this for the first time, if you were hearing this for the first time, if you were new to Unitarian Universalism, you might suppose that a church where you can believe whatever you want must be a place of weak conviction or casual commitment. And if you thought that, you would be wrong, because it turns out that a church grounded in intellectual freedom attracts people who take ideas seriously. And a church grounded in the right of conscience attracts people who take their commitments seriously. And so Unitarian Universalism is best understood as a religion of commitments. It's not about beliefs, it is of commitments. And we say our version of what is called the Ames Covenant here every Sunday. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. A covenant UU churches all around the country have been saying for over 100 years. And a covenant is just a fancy word for a promise or a commitment freely entered into. And I said I was going to name three core commitments of modern Unitarian Universalism today. The first core commitment is to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of our neighbor. The second commitment is to protect and care for the interdependent web of which we are all a part, which includes our neighbor, right? It includes the web of our common humanity, but also includes the web of the natural world. And the third core commitment of Unitarian Universalism is to put love at the center in the things we say and do. And when we are doing our best to live into these commitments, and we can only do our best, then we are practicing Unitarian Universalism. Now, of course, we are not the only people who care about these values. Other religious and ethical traditions also have these commitments. Doesn't make them UU, nor do they wish to be UU. And there's more to UU than just these commitments, right? Because religions are complex and multifaceted institutions. But if we are practicing Unitarian Universalism, then just as we practice it, these are the commitments that we are going to return to again and again and again. And these are the commitments that will challenge us and grow us and ground us. And if we do our best to live into these commitments, then they will also come to live in us, and we will find ourselves over time changed by them. When I discovered Unitarian Universalism as a young adult, post-Catholic, unchurched atheist living in Indiana, the freedom of conscience clause, that bit about you can believe your own beliefs, that was absolutely necessary in order for me to go through the door. Right? This was the Bible Belt, and I did not want to pretend to believe things that I did not believe about God or Jesus or anything. I wanted to come in with my own beliefs and my own integrity. Not to worry, I was assured freedom of thought, the right of conscience, is absolutely central to Unitarian Universalism. Freedom is how we do religion. Great, I said. Then I will try this thing. Full disclosure, it was my wife's idea. We were, in fact, those atheists with kids that you were always hearing about. So freedom got me in the door, but it did not keep me there. Actually, singing kept me there. I did not know that singing with strangers was a thing I was missing in my life or a thing I would like to do, but it turned out to be very powerful. I don't know why we don't all just spontaneously burst into song waiting in line at the grocery store. All right? Amen. I didn't even mind the hymns with the word God in them. I said, you know what? I will interpret that word poetically for me. Maybe for my neighbor, they'll interpret it in a different way, and that seemed all good. We need not think alike to love alike is a phrase I would come to hear, which comes from the great 16th century Unitarian minister in Transylvania, Francis David. Well, not really. Right? That's another thing that I would learn, that Unitarian Universalists sometimes like to have folk tales about our famous people, and what they did or did not say. Francis David did not say that, but he might have said something sort of close to that. And anyway, that is a good thing to hear in my new church. We need not think alike to love alike. Yeah. So I looked forward to coming to church every week, at first to sing and to hear the beautiful music that we were graced with every Sunday, but then also to hear these stimulating and thought-provoking sermons, right? We would discuss the ideas that we had heard that Sunday as we drove home as a family from church, which was a 30-minute drive, by the way, because that is life as a UU in the Midwest. And the kids, our children, were having their own intellectual and spiritual odyssey in the religious education program. They would share what they were learning, sometimes. We would share what we were learning. This new church talked a lot about the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And that was something that I had always felt, but not had the words for. And that resonated with me deeply. But it was different to hear about the inherent worth and dignity of every person in a church, as opposed to, say, like in a classroom, or to read it in a book sitting on my couch, or I guess to hear it in a podcast. At church, there was this unspoken implication that I was supposed to do something with this idea, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, that I was supposed to not just think it, but live it. And actually, it wasn't an unspoken implication, it was a very often spoken explication. Because every Sunday at this church during the service, we would say together something they called a covenant. And it went like this: love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another, this is our great covenant. Maybe that sounds familiar to you. We said that every Sunday at my congregation in Indianapolis. No one was telling me what to believe at this church. If they had, I would not have stayed. What they were doing was inviting me into a deeper level of commitment to love, to service, to peace, to truth every week. And then they were modeling what that looked like in the ways that they were with each other. And they were modeling what that looked like in the way they were with the world. They talked about world community with peace for all. They talked about respect for the interdependent web of life. They talked about the worth of all people, and they lived those things. They showed up at rallies for peace at my new church. They helped their neighbors. They put solar panels on the church, and then they went all around the state of Indiana teaching other people how to put solar panels on their buildings. Within a year of attending the church, my family marched in the Pride Parade, which was a big deal in Indiana back in 2008, and not something that I ever would have imagined myself doing before I started attending this church. As a bookish introvert who did not see himself as a marcher or an activist. And that is why I did stay, because this religious tradition and the community that embodied it was inviting me Sunday after Sunday to live a more thoughtful and engaged and committed life. It was inviting me to do new things, to take risks, to make commitments, the kind of commitments that were worth taking risks for. And those commitments were slowly but surely changing me and changing my life. And of course, I did not know how much my life was eventually going to change, but that is the beauty of taking risks, right? You do not know where it is going to lead. And once upon a time, it was a huge risk for me just to walk through the door of something called a Unitarian Universalist church. People that are used to being part of a church sometimes forget what an act of bravery it is for a newcomer to walk through one of those doors that first time. It can feel like a huge and vulnerable thing. And for me, back then, it was. I mean, coffee hour was terrifying, right? Before I became a professional extrovert, I was an introvert. And coffee hour was overwhelming. Like, I just wanted to stand by the water fountain and hope that no one noticed me. But people did actually notice me, and they were very kind, and they were very welcoming, and they offered up avenues of connection. And so more little risks followed, right? Singing unfamiliar songs, sharing in joys and concerns for the first time, volunteering to help with one of those food drives, pledging. It costs how much to run a church? Pledging. And then teaching one of those religious education classes that were serving my family so well. And marching in the Pride Parade. And then some even bigger risks followed, speaking in public at a social justice event, leading a worship service, serving in governance. Then a really big risk, experiencing our first big church conflict. They happen. And choosing to stay connected and committed anyway to what is, after all, an imperfect community of humans doing their best. That was my story of risk-taking. And you each have your own story of risk-taking that is unique to you, right? Because what feels like a risk or what is a risk is different for every person. But if you have been here for any length of time, then I do not doubt that somewhere along the way you have taken a risk. And if you are here for the first time today, then you are definitely taking a risk, right? And that is the beautiful thing about what we do here. Our congregations can function as laboratories of risk-taking, because these are also places of connection and care, and they are grounded in love. And so they are safe places, or at least safer places, where we can challenge ourselves in small ways, and then in bigger ways, and then in bigger ways, and then sometimes and at some moments in history in very big ways. That is one of your strengths as a congregation among many, and one of the things that led me to want to be here and be with you. You are good at risk-taking. It is in your DNA as a congregation. It is your proud history. And you have been able to take those big risks that you have taken and face those big challenges because of all of that practice, growing in courage, growing in commitment. This is a laboratory of courage that you have built together. So it is too little to say this is a church where you can believe whatever you want. Say instead, this is a laboratory of courage. This is a place of deep commitment and brave people, because that is what you are. And we are committed here to some deceptively simple propositions as Unitarian Universalists. That you are worthy, and so is your neighbor. That life is sacred, and so we should protect it. That we are meant to be free, and yet we deeply need each other. That love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. Right? Deceptively simple, tremendously powerful, and worthy. Worthy of our deepest commitment, worthy of a lifetime of practice. And then there may come a season where those commitments and that practice will be tested. Sometimes in our individual lives, and then sometimes for all of us. Right? There may come a season where a storm has blown up seeming out of nowhere, and the house is shaking, and the winds are howling. Maybe it feels like that in this moment. And anchored by your commitment and practiced in your courage, when that moment arises, you will say, "Let the winds rage, we shall not be moved." May it be so, and amen. And our closing hymn today is "We Shall Not Be Moved." The words are in an insert and on the screen, and I'm going to turn it over to Brad to lead you in this.
So how many people here have gone to an ICE protest? So what we're doing this morning is we're doing it just like we were at a protest. That's why I'm not playing piano, and that's why we have Dean on guitar. You can't take a piano to a protest. And you may be tempted to look at the music here. Just do it the way you know it, right? Everybody, please stand in body or spirit, and let's do "We Shall Not Be Moved." The words are on the insert and on the screen.
Our closing words today are by the great Howard Thurman, friend to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and mentor to many a Unitarian minister. He said, "Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve." And now we extinguish the flame of our chalice, but not the light of understanding, the warmth of compassion, or the fire of commitment. Let us take those with us until we meet again. Go in peace. you.